Hi everyone, Dr. Glenn here, and welcome to our on-demand training, our webinar, we like to call it, about the 6 overlooked causes of thyroid disease and Hashimoto's. So we've got a lot of great information here for you. And as we go along, I'd like for you to kind of keep a couple of things in mind. I love this Mark Twain quote where he said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And I know that some of you have been told that you're going to have to take thyroid medication for the rest of your life and that there's nothing you can do about it. And if you have Hashimoto's, there's nothing you can do about that. Well, that just ain't so, because the newest research has shown us how to actually reverse these problems with the thyroid and with the autoimmune system. Also remember that there was a time when intelligent men thought the earth was flat. And so if you've been told something, even if you respect the person that told you, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. It just means that that's what they were probably told. Now, a lot of people wonder, well, why do I do this? And I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to give you a couple examples here. I do this because I love to see people get well. This is an email from a woman that had multiple sclerosis. She came into the office in a wheelchair and look at this 6 months later, and she's actually walking. It's absolutely just amazing. Let me share another one with you too that's a little bit more about thyroid problems. This is from a patient of mine a couple years ago named Shay Sloan, and she gave us permission to use this. She came to me with thyroid problems. She couldn't lose weight. She was tired, the typical thyroid things. And after 6 months, she's been able to now she's actually off of her thyroid medication. She's lost more than 60 pounds. Her gut and her adrenal glands are doing what they're supposed to. And she says here that this program, what we've done for her, has accomplished more in 6 months than she's been able to accomplish in years. So that's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. A lot of people want to know where our office is. It's in Reston, Virginia at Plaza America, just in case you are interested in that. This is the building here. And my office is right on the other side of that little picture right there. And our health coach is right beyond that right there. But also we see people in our office, and we also have lots of patients that are just all over the country and even all over the world. So we can take care of people on the phone, Skype, FaceTime, and things like that. So you don't have to live, close enough to us to come into the office. So who am I? I'm Dr. Glenn. I've written several books about functional medicine and about the effects of food on healthcare and things like that. Also, just a little bit about my background, because you might wonder who I am. I graduated from Baylor in '79 in physics. I taught electrical engineering for several years. I was an athlete back then. I raced bicycles in Europe, and so we were very health conscious. And also, we couldn't take drugs because you would dope test positive during a race. And so we were very health oriented, the people that were racing back then, and when they still are. And but in the 80s, I decided I wanted to go back to school and become a doctor. And so I went to the National Health Sciences University. I got my doctorate in chiropractic. That was my first doctorate. We moved to Europe in the early 90s. I did a diplomate in neurology in Amsterdam at the Carrick Institute. I started doing functional medicine several years ago, and I've done most all of the functional medicine training. You can see it all there on the side. I've even trained with Dr. Bredesen, a neurologist out at UCLA, in reversing Alzheimer's and dementia. And I'm currently writing my PhD in integrative medicine. That's who I am. I love to teach people about health and help them change their lives. So I'm going to ask you today, are you committed? Are you committed to do, just type in the chat box if you want to. You can put yes, or I am, or I'm on board, or whatever you want to write there. Thank you. Appreciate that. Are you committed to do what it takes to change your life? That's the question. You're in charge of your life. And I'm going to ask you if you'll stay with me till the end, because I have a very special offer for you. Yep, I'm going to give you an opportunity to actually get some labs run and stuff like that. Labs that you probably have never had run before. And we're going to talk about those as we go through. Now, this webinar isn't going to change your life unless you make the choices that we're going to talk about today, unless you do the things that you have to do to make the changes that lead to a different lifestyle. So it's like Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. You've got to make a choice, and you're the only one that can make that choice. So I want you to think about it like this. Right now, I want you to think about, where do you want to be? Not where you are, but where do you want to be? Think about your desired state, or what would you like your future to look like? And start with the end in mind. And then what we have to do is figure out how we're going to get you there. And in order to figure out how we're going to get you there, we have to have a realistic evaluation of where you are right now. And a lot of that we do with the proper and correct lab testing. And we're going to show you that as we go along. So answer a question for me. You type in the chat box if you want to. I appreciate it. I see them coming up. And so tell me, why are you here today? Somebody just, Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is over 90% of all the thyroid problems in North America are Hashimoto's. You've been told your labs are normal and you still feel terrible. I'm going to tell you, you're not the only one. As a matter of fact, I would imagine that most of you that are listening today have been told your labs are normal. As a matter of fact, if you have been told that your labs are normal, but you still feel terrible, and your doctor says there's nothing else you can do, just type in, yes, me too, or whatever you want. Thanks. I see that come. There's so many people that have been told everything's fine, and you still don't feel fine. Today's agenda, I'm going to challenge you today. A lot of times people come to see me and they're trying to figure out which thyroid medication should they be on, or should they change their dose. And what I'm going to challenge you to do today is, don't try to find a faster way up the old mountain. The old mountain is based on 1950s thinking, and we're going to cover that in a little bit. Just trying to regulate thyroid issues with thyroid replacement hormones. That's an idea that started in the 1950s, and it should have stayed in the 1950s because it does not work. I'm going to challenge you today to climb a different mountain. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to show you as we go through how you can actually fix thyroid disease and Hashimoto's. And I'm going to challenge you to take that challenge and run with it. And that's the thing that will change your life. So here's what I'm going to ask of you. Be open to new ideas. Listen to what we have to say. Forget about what you've been told. If you've been told anything based on 1950s, 20th century thinking, it is not true anymore. And I'm going to ask you to take action with the information that we go over today. When we're finished, I hope that you're asking new questions. You're going to know the most common causes of thyroid disease, because I'm going to show you exactly where those causes lie. You're going to understand why the current approach is failing and will fail. It does not work. You'll know exactly what your next steps should be, and I'm going to give you a life-changing opportunity for being here today, and we'll get to that towards the end. You're also going to meet a few of the patients that I've treated. This is Cheryl. We're going to talk about how she lost 105 pounds, and she found her car, and that'll make sense in just a minute, and she saved her marriage as well. But before we get into that, there's a whole new approach to medicine that has just started up in the last few years, and it's called functional medicine. And functional medicine starts with trying to uncover or find what we call the root cause of whatever it is that's bothering you. If you find the root cause, let's say there's a tack in a chair and you sit in the chair and you get a pain in your rear end. Well, the tack is the root cause. The system that's affected is your rear end, and the symptom that you get would be pain. Well, our healthcare system in the West, especially in the United States, is designed around treating your symptoms. Doctors are not trained to find the root cause of what's going on and treat that. They just give you prescriptions based on your symptoms because they don't know how to fix these other things. The whole new movement in functional medicine is all about if you find the root cause and you fix it, then the symptoms go away. So this means it's not about what you have. It's not about the name you put on it. Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, Crohn's, IBS, ulcerative colitis, PCOS. All of these sorts of things are just names. What we want to do is we want to discover, why do you have the problem? Because if we can figure out what the why is, then we can usually do something about it. So let's talk about what are some of the most common root causes of thyroid disease. Well, one of the biggest ones that we see is chronic stress. And that is just like welcome to the modern world, because stress is just everywhere. The next one that I see quite often are stealth infections, things like Epstein-Barr, Lyme disease, and some of you probably have either thought you had those things or been told they don't exist or you don't have them, but you actually might have had them. It's a possibility. The other thing that we see is nutrient depletion. Do you know that over 85% of people who live in North America have at least one mineral deficiency? And it's not because we don't eat enough, it's because we don't absorb what we eat. The other thing we see an awful lot of is food and chemical sensitivity. You know, what I see almost every day in my office are people whose food list of the tolerable things that they can eat, it keeps getting narrower and smaller and smaller. And because you just keep developing sensitivities to more and more and more foods, you know, that can actually be fixed and turned around. What we're calling that now is oral tolerance. In addition to that, there are all kinds of chemicals in our world now. And you know, there's over 80,000 chemicals that have been created in just the last 100 years that didn't even exist before. And leaky gut syndrome, that is a huge cause of thyroid problem. And we're actually going to spend just a little bit of time on leaky gut syndrome in just a bit. And I'm going to actually show you a picture of a leaky gut under a microscope. And I'll bet you've never seen one before, but we're going to go over that. Let's talk about a couple of facts related to thyroid disease. I'm going to ask you this. Just think about this for a minute. How important is thyroid hormone? What do you think? Who's it? Very important. Yes, it is. It's critically important. But all right, most of you may not know this, but do you know that every cell in your body has a receptor for thyroid hormone? Every single cell in your body has a receptor for thyroid hormone. And what that means is that your thyroid is responsible for turning every cell in your body on and off. That's how important thyroid hormone is. Let's talk about what we call thyroid pathways. And I'm going to show you the 3 main places where things can go wrong. And also, if you can get these 3 things working properly, you can almost always fix the thyroid system. Let's do a little overview of thyroid function. Up in your brain is something called your hypothalamus. And your hypothalamus talks to your body through something called the pituitary gland. Now think of the hypothalamus like the air traffic control person up in the tower, out at the airport. And their job is to be up there and keep an eye on everything that's going on, make sure people get where they're supposed to, the planes turn left, turn right, take off, land, pull away from the terminal, whatever, and everybody gets where they're supposed to be. That's the hypothalamus's job. Now, we all know that behind every good boss is a better executive administrative assistant, and that's the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus tells the pituitary to go out and do whatever it wants it to do. And in this case, we're going to talk about thyroid. So the hypothalamus tells the pituitary to tell the thyroid to make stuff, to either turn it up or turn it down. And the pituitary makes TSH. TSH is not made by the thyroid. It's made by the pituitary. And think of TSH like the volume control on your thyroid. If you want more thyroid hormone, you make more TSH. You turn the volume up. And if you want less thyroid hormone, well, then you would turn the volume down. So TSH goes up and down all day long. And I'll bet you never heard that before, because your doctor's probably looking at your TSH value and regulating your thyroid replacement hormone based on your TSH. And that demonstrates a fundamentally incorrect understanding of how the thyroid works. That's back to that 1950s thing where we thought TSH was a stable number. And if it's low, well, then you got too much thyroid hormone. And if it's high, you don't have enough and you need to change your dosage. But now we know that TSH actually goes up and down all day long. So there's no way on earth you should be using that as a measure of how much medication you should be taking. Now, what does the thyroid do? Well, it makes some stuff called T4, and it makes some stuff called T3. And now T3 is the active form of the hormone. T4 is inactive. It doesn't do anything. So think about it like this. T4 is crude oil and T3 is gasoline. You've got to turn the T4 into T3. All right, so far so good. But here's where the problem arises. 93% of the thyroid's output is T4, and only about 7% is T3. So we've got a big problem here. We got all this T4, and if you're taking Synthroid, levothyroxine, or one of those things, you're actually taking even more T4. But if you can't convert it into T3, it doesn't do you any good at all. So what happens with this T4 that's sitting there that needs to be converted? Well, just like crude oil, it needs to be unloaded off of the tanker. Think about it like that. And it needs to be carried into the refinery. And in your body, the refinery for T4 is the liver. And the liver's job is to convert 60% of your T4 into T3. Now, the liver just became very, very important in thyroid hormone production and conversion. Has anybody heard of this before? A few of you had. A few of you said that you've read about this. All right. Now, in order for the liver to do its job properly, it has to have some things called cofactors. All right, these are the 4 primary cofactors that the liver needs to do its job. And think of cofactors like this. Cofactors are like the nails that you use to build a house. You can have all the lumber in the world, you can have the shingles and the trusses and the windows and the doors, but if you don't have nails, you can't build a house. And if you don't have cofactors, the liver cannot turn T4 into T3. Now here's the thing. I'm going to get my little pointer here. Serotonin and dopamine, maybe you've heard of those. Those are neurotransmitters. Now when I was in school, we were taught that these things were made in your brain. But actually, as of February last year, we know that over 90% of your neurotransmitters are actually made in your gut. So you need these things in order for the liver to do its job. And if you don't have them, the liver cannot do its job, and it doesn't make a difference how much T4 you have. If you can't convert, you can't convert. You can up the dosage, reduce the dosage. It will not make any difference whatsoever. Now, 60% is good, but that's not all of it. So then what do? Well, the rest of it gets sent over to your gut. And in your gut, you should turn about another 20% of that T4 into T3. Now, so not only does your gut convert some of your hormone, but it also makes your cofactors. So now the gut just became critically important in thyroid function. As a matter of fact, if your liver and or your gut don't work properly, you can't ever get the thyroid to work properly. So a lot of times, you've got to focus on the liver and the gut and not on the dosage of T4. Now, the liver makes one other thing, and that is something called reverse T3. So when you need to turn the thyroid system off, your body makes reverse T3, and that blocks the receptor site. Now, when would you want to turn the thyroid system off? Well, you would want to turn it off if you had a stress event that required something called fight or flight. So when you have a fight or flight event, or when your adrenal glands become active, your adrenal glands actually turn your thyroid off. So let me show you how that works with a different graphic here. You can see that here the hypothalamus talks to the pituitary, stimulates the thyroid to make T4, which gets converted into T3, and then the T3 goes out to the body and does all of the things that it's supposed to do. In the presence of stress, the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to stimulate the adrenal gland to make something called cortisol. And cortisol, when you make it, it ups your energy so that you can fight or you can run away, like from lions and tigers, or you can stand and fight the Vikings as they're going to come try to ransack your village. Well, when cortisol ramps up, it goes over and it shuts down TSH production, and it also comes over here and it stops T4 to T3 conversion. So if you're having lots of stress, your adrenal system is going to actually go over and turn your thyroid system off. So a lot of times, not only do we have to make sure we fix the liver and the gut, but we also have to fix the adrenal glands. Let me show you just one little graphic here that will give you an idea of why some of you, as a matter of fact, let's just stop for a second. How many of you are having hormonal problems? Okay, just type it in the me or yes I am or whatever. I want to say yes, quite a few of you are responding to that. Okay, your adrenal glands not only respond to stress, but they also control hormone production. Now, in women, of course, lots of your hormones, look down here, your estrogens and your progesterone are made by the ovaries, but some of it is also made by the adrenal glands. And in men, or in women, women get their testosterone from their adrenal glands because obviously you don't have testes. And it's just the opposite in men. Men have testes, and that makes some of their testosterone, and the adrenal glands make a little bit of it. But men get their estrogen and progesterone from the adrenal glands because they don't have ovaries. Now, when you're stressed out all the time, instead of coming down here and making your sex hormones, what happens is you take cholesterol, and yes, cholesterol is not bad. Okay, it's poor cholesterol. It's got blamed for all kinds of things that it's not responsible for. Cholesterol is actually the building block for a lot of your hormones. So you take cholesterol, you come down here, and you end up making cortisol. So when you make cortisol, not only do you turn the thyroid system off, but you also create a load for the liver to have to clean up, because your liver has to detox all that excess cortisol out of the body. Well, guess what? If the liver is busy taking the cortisol out of the body, then it's not going to have the capacity to adequately convert T4 into T3. So these two things sort of team up on you to shut your thyroid down. Your adrenal glands are shutting it down, and your liver is preoccupied detoxifying you, so it can't go and make that big conversion that you need. So how are we going to figure out what in the world is actually going on? Well, you do this by running labs. And I've got a little question here for you. You can just type it in there if you want to. How many of you have been told that your lab tests are normal and you still don't feel good? A lot of you. Just type me if you want to. Type it in the box, or yes, I have. I know that a lot of you have been to your doctors and their labs have come back and say, well, your labs look pretty good. There's not anything wrong with your thyroid. And you're going, yeah, but I don't have any energy. I don't sleep well. I get up in the morning and I'm still tired. My hair's falling out. I've got, hot and cold, the night sweats and all of that. And I'm not sleeping or anything else. Well, we're going to talk about labs for just a minute. You know, traditional lab ranges are far too wide for good health, and I'm going to show you what we mean by that in just a second. In functional medicine, we bring those lab values in a whole lot closer to the middle because that's where good health is. So let me show you what that actually means. So this is a graphic representation of, let's say, take TSH for example, because most of you are familiar with TSH. Now, in North America, what's considered the normal standard range for TSH can be anywhere from 0.5 to 5.5. You know, now 0.5 to 5.5, that's over 1,000% difference. That is a huge range. In functional medicine, you know, what we say is this: if 5.6 is too high, you know what? 5.4 is also. If you're up in here, you're way too high. And if you're down in here, you're way too low. In functional medicine, we want to see you right in here. Now, if you know anything about statistics, this is called the mean. And this is one standard deviation from the mean, and this from here to here is 2. And almost every lab range in America and in North America for different measurements is, if it's within 2 standard deviations of the mean, it's considered normal. And you know what we say in functional medicine? That is not good. You want to be right in here under the bell part of this curve. That's where good health lies. So let's see how this actually works out in real life. I've got a graphic here for you. Actually, I got a lab test here for you to look at. All right, if you remember TSH, this is an actual patient. She came to see me not long ago. She came in, her TSH was 1.87. And if you'll remember, that was right about in the middle of just really, really good. And nobody had ever run what we call a full panel on her. So here's what a full panel looks like. And where do all these numbers come from? Well, remember back where we showed you where all the conversion takes place, the T4 to T3, the liver, the gut, the reverse T3, all of these things. Well, you can measure all of those numbers. And if you measure all of those numbers, then it's easy to pinpoint where the system is breaking down. Her TSH is absolutely just fine, but every other number in her panel is out of range. Her T3s are too low. Her T4s are too low. She has thyroid peroxidase antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. This means she actually has an autoimmune disease to her thyroid, and that's called Hashimoto's. And how many of you have or think you have Hashimoto's? Just type it in the box. Yeah, I see that. A lot of you do, you know, because over 90% of all thyroid problems in North America are actually a Hashimoto's problem. All right, let's move over here. And let me show you how this works out when you run the proper labs. Now, most of you, as a matter of fact, I'd be surprised. Every now and then somebody's had the whole thing run, but I see it very rarely. As a matter of fact, I've only had 2 patients in the last 3 years that brought in a complete thyroid panel. Both of those ladies, they were nurse practitioners, and they ran the labs on themselves because their doctors wouldn't even run the labs for them. And they had to pay for the labs out of their pocket because insurance doesn't pay for the full lab. All right, so let's look at these 3 people. This TSH is 0.65. That's low. This one's 1.71. That's right in the middle. That's very good. And this TSH is 5.23, and that's way too high. Now, here's what's interesting. Watch. Remember, T3 is the active form of the hormone. That's the kind you need. This person's T3 is low. This person's T3 is low. And this person's T3 is low. So in other words, all 3 of these people have low thyroid function. They all have the low amount of active hormone, but their TSHs are completely different. So I want you to kind of grasp this idea. You cannot run thyroid. You can't manage the thyroid by measuring the TSH alone. It will lead to failure every time. Now, this person has thyroid peroxidase antibodies. This person does not, and this person does. So this one and this one here both have Hashimoto's, and this person does not. Now let me show you this. This is a really good little chart here. This is a person that came in and she did have Hashimoto's, all right? And she was taking no medication at all of any kind, period. Absolutely nothing. All right. So she wasn't taking Synthroid, Armor, NatureThyroid, any of them. And what we did is we measured her TSH on the same day of the month, every month for 7 months. All right. In January, she's 4.5. That's a little high, not totally out of range. February, she's 0.08. That's almost nothing. So that's completely the other direction. In March, she's 2.3. That's pretty good. April, she's 3.8. Little high, not too bad. In May, she's 8.7. And in June, she's 7.4. These are way out of range, all right, for the typical standard range. And in July, she's 1.6, which is just perfect. What this shows you is TSH goes up and down all the time, and you shouldn't even bother measuring it because it doesn't tell you anything at all. So functional lab testings. Functional lab tests, when you really get in and you start running the right test and getting the right information, they reveal what conventional testing does not reveal. They explain why things are happening and not just what's happening. And with the correct testing, you can actually pinpoint exactly what needs to be corrected, and you can measure your success because you measure it, you fix the problem or you treat the problem, you measure it again, and you can see if you're actually getting things fixed. I want to take just a moment and go over leaky gut syndrome with you because leaky gut syndrome is not only a big cause of thyroid problems, but it's also a real hot topic nowadays. And I learned about leaky gut syndrome about 6 years ago when I developed a leaky gut and I developed Hashimoto's. So yes, I had a leaky gut and I had Hashimoto's. I don't have Hashimoto's. I had Hashimoto's. I had thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and I don't have them anymore. This can be fixed. So I've done this, and you can do this too. So exactly what is a leaky gut? Well, a leaky gut, or it used to be called intestinal permeability or hyperpermeability. That's a condition in which the lining of the small intestine becomes damaged, and that causes undigested food particles, toxic waste products like from the good bacteria in your gut, and even the bacteria themselves to leak through the intestines and get into the bloodstream. So think of it like this. Here you've got your carafe of coffee, and here you've got your filter, all right? And your coffee grounds are in there and you're pouring the water on. And what you want is you want to get the coffee into the coffee pot, but you don't want any grounds in the coffee. Now, if somebody came along and poked holes in your coffee filter, well, then you're going to end up with coffee grounds in your coffee. So you're going to have stuff in the coffee that's not supposed to be there. In leaky gut, you end up with holes in the intestinal lining, and that allows things into the blood that are not supposed to be there. Give me just a second. I'm going to take a drink of water here. All right. So I want you to think about that when you think about leaky gut. So let's see what actually happens. Now, these things here are cells, and the cells are held together by things called tight junctions. Now, tight junctions, they hold the cells together. So if you ever played a game when you were a kid called Red Rover, where you get a bunch of kids on one side of the field all lock their arms together, and a bunch of kids on the other side of the field, and they'll all lock their arms together, and they'd call Sally or Bobby or somebody right over, and they'd come running across the field and they'd try to break through the line. Well, if the tight junctions held, then they couldn't get through there. And if the tight junctions broke through, then here's what happens. We've got a little video here. You can see these tight junctions are broken. And so what happens is stuff from the gut gets through there and into the blood where it's not supposed to be. Now, the things that break the tight junctions apart also break the cells apart. So you can actually get through there as well and into the blood. These things aren't supposed to get into the blood. And when they do, they cause an immune response. And if the proteins in those things that get into the blood, if they look like a part of you, you could have just developed an antibody to a part of you. It just so happens that there's parts of the gliadin protein. Gliadin is one of the proteins in gluten. And there's a part of it that looks just like your thyroid. And so if that part gets through the intestinal wall there and into the blood, and you develop an antibody to it, then you could have developed an antibody to your thyroid. And we're going to talk about that some more in just a minute. But this is a picture that was sent to me recently by a colleague of mine at the University of Virginia. And what I want you to see here, this is the same picture looking at it from the top instead of from the side. And here you can see the little purpley blue bits. That's the nucleus of the cell. The green lines are the cell walls. And what you can notice here is that those cell walls are so tight together that you can't even see two cell walls. It looks like one wall. So it's like the walls in row houses or in duplexes where you share a wall with your neighbor. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and they're spraying an awful lot of Roundup on our food these days. Now, this is 2 minutes after exposure. Everything looks fine. Come over here and look at this. This is 10 minutes after exposure to Roundup, and you can see that this is all starting to break down in here. And this over here, this is 16 minutes after exposure to glyphosate or Roundup. And this right here, you can see how it is right there. That is a hole in the intestinal lining. That is a leaky gut. It's right there. Now, a lot of people think that, I only eat gluten every now and then, or I only eat, genetically modified corn chips or something every now and then. Well, it only takes 16 minutes after one exposure to damage the gut lining. So sometimes you've got to take some things out of your diet when you want to heal your gut. Now, we can measure for a leaky gut. These are actually my labs from several years ago. These things here, all right, they should not get into the blood. All right, so if we've got antibodies over here, it means that this stuff got through the intestinal lining. It's supposed to be in the gut, but it's not supposed to be in the blood. The only way it can get into the blood is through a hole in the intestinal lining. So if it gets in there, you're going to develop an antibody to it, and they'll show up right there. So what did I do? Well, I took some compounded supplements and things like that, some things that were designed to heal the gut lining. I got these inflammatory foods out of my diet, and this is the same test run 3 months later. There you go. Now, I talk to people all the time. They said, I've been dealing with a leaky gut for years, and I'm not minimizing this, but my question is why? If you do what needs to be done, you can fix a leaky gut. You just have to know what needs to be done. And if you do that, you can fix a leaky gut in a matter of just a few months. It's not, your body's always healing and replacing the tissue with new tissue. And if you do the right thing, then you can cure these problems. Real quickly, I want to talk about autoimmune just for a couple of slides here because I know a lot of you have Hashimoto's. I want you to remember that 90%, and now they're even saying a little more than 90% of thyroid problems among women in North America, especially in the U.S., it's due to an autoimmune disease. Hashimoto's and Graves' disease are not thyroid diseases. They're autoimmune diseases that attack the thyroid. But the same thing we do to fix the thyroid has to be done to fix the autoimmune disease. And autoimmune diseases have been proven over the last 7 years to be completely reversible. That's right. A doctor up at Harvard has proven that you can reverse autoimmune disease, and we've actually been doing it in our office now for several years. So here's what happens. In your immune system, you have things called Th1, T helper 1, and T helper 2 cells. And T helper 2 cells, they go out and they tag the things in the blood that they want the Th1 cells to go destroy. And if everything stays in balance and it stays calmed down, then things work just fine. But sometimes the Th1 cells get a little enthusiastic and they'll start to attack lots of things, and that's what happens in autoimmune disease. So if we can balance out that immune system, then these problems can be corrected, and that's really good. Let's do a couple of case studies. I want you to meet Nima. Nima is a 50-year-old female with multiple health problems. It's a high-paced job. Of course, she lives in the Washington, D.C. area. There's lots of high-paced jobs around here. She has aging parents, and a lot of us do now. So we got something else to take care of as we get older. She's been diagnosed with several problems. Her main health concern when she came in was psoriasis. We now know that psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. All right. She'd put on close to 100 pounds, and she found us online, and her kids, she has 2 kids, they're not kids anymore, they're grown. They're both pharmacists, and her doctor wanted to put her on some immunosuppressant drugs. Immunosuppressant drugs suppress your immune system. Your immune system is there for a reason, and suppressing it is not a good idea. But that's what doctors are trained to do. Her kids told her, "Mom, you're not taking this stuff. I don't know what you're going to do. You got to find a different way, but you cannot take these immunosuppressant drugs." So here's Nima. And you can see she's got a weight issue. She's got psoriasis, diabetes, hypothyroid. Oh, and she's got a fatty liver. Where do you convert most of that T4 into T3? Remember what we said? In the liver. Her cholesterol is also high. Cholesterol will go up with adrenal fatigue, and she's overweight. She was feeling tired in the morning even when she had enough sleep. She was waking up in the middle of the night around between 2 and 4. If that's happening to you, it's called reactive hypoglycemia, and you can't go back to sleep for about an hour. Her libido and her motivation were gone. Well, of course they were. Her hormones are all messed up. She's craving certain kinds of food. She's tired in the middle of the afternoon. She's drinking coffee to keep going. She gets irritable if her meals are skipped. She can't lose weight no matter what she does. And then when she tries to exercise, she's so sore for days that we call that a poor exercise response. She had mental confusion, lack of focus. That's brain fog. Let's just take a second let me back off for just a second here and get a drink of water. If you have brain fog, type it in the chat box. I know. Do you know that 15 years ago, brain fog as a word didn't even exist? Brain fog is one of the most common symptoms that we see nowadays. She's got digestive dysfunction. Well, of course she does. Her gut's not working properly. She's anxious and depressed. That has to do with her neurotransmitters. And remember, neurotransmitters are made in the gut. They are made a little bit in the brain, but the majority of them are made in the gut. If your gut's not happy, you can be depressed, loss of motivation, and anxiety. Do you know that somewhere between 25 and 30% of all women in North America in their 40s are taking antidepressive drugs, and I'll bet a lot of you are taking them, and if you're not, you've probably had them recommended to you and you chose not to take them. She's dizzy when she stands up quickly. That's an adrenal problem. She feels tired all the time and she can't handle stress. So what did we do for Nima? Well, we gave her some custom compounded supplements to help heal her intestinal lining and detox her liver. We put her on an AIP diet for 6 weeks. That's an autoimmune paleo diet to decrease the inflammatory exposure to her gut so we could get that gut healed. She started working with a personal trainer. Her energy came up. We had her do some stress reduction things and even had her do some hobbies. Now, for Nima, we did something called an organic acids test. And I'm going to kind of go over here because there are a lot of different tests that we use, and you have to use the right one depending on who you are. For Nima, This has to do with fatty acid metabolism, and her little markers are up here in the red where they should not be. So she's not able to metabolize fatty acids. Of course she's going to have a weight problem. Carbohydrate metabolism. This one is real close to high, and this one's is right pegged at the very end. So she's going to not be able to process carbohydrates. So what her body is going to want to do is store them around the middle. This has to do with energy production. If you have ever heard of something called the Krebs cycle, that's how your body makes energy. She doesn't even have the ability to make energy. You can change her thyroid hormone all day long, and it's never going to fix her fatigue problem. So look at Nima, 5 months. See what happened in 5 months. She feels great, and she's lost 70 pounds. You know, the body wants to get to the right place. It wants to heal, and it wants to take care of itself if you just do the right things for it. Let's do one more case study. I told you you'd meet Cheryl again. We met her in the beginning. We're going to see what's going on with her now. She's a 40-year-old female. She's got a lot of health challenges. She's been battling weight her whole life. She was diagnosed hypothyroid, endometriosis, and major depression. All right, so she's got thyroid problems, she's got hormonal problems, and she's got neurotransmitter problems. She's got a problem in her gut and in her adrenal glands and in her thyroid. Stressful job, and she was doing home renovations. So she would have gotten some exposure to toxins, paint, the fumes in carpets and things like that. Her memory was so bad she couldn't remember where she parked the car, and she was shocked when she saw 300 pounds on the scale. And you can read about her here. She felt like something was off. Her body hurt all the time. She couldn't lose weight. She was fatigued, restless, had heartburn. Her period was all messed up, angry, emotional, anxious, worried, no motivation. This is just, I mean, poor Cheryl. I mean, her whole life is hitting the fan. And I'll bet you there's a lot of you that the same thing is happening to. And even what she would do, you know, she was raised to get out there and take care of things and be in charge. And so she started to even berate herself, feeling that it was just her laziness and lack of willpower. We ran a blood lab on Cheryl. We ran one on Nima as well, but I just showed you her organic acids test. When we run blood labs, we run the whole thing. Now, check this out. These are her labs, May 22nd, 2017, and these are her labs, September the 1st, 2017. So this is June, July, August. This is 3.5 months. Her blood sugar is looking better. These things are looking better. Come down here. I want to show you this. These are her liver enzymes. They're way up. Now they're back to normal. When her liver enzymes were up, could she convert T4 to T3 in her liver? Well, of course not. You see this? Her liver enzymes are up. We come over here, come to the second page, and we look at this. Her iron levels are low. Her serum iron, her percentage of saturation of iron, and her ferritin are all out of range. Her ferritin is still a little too high, but it's getting better. Cheryl has anemia, and nobody had picked it up before. And I would say that 80% of the women that come to see me have anemia. And you know, if you're anemic, you can't carry oxygen. And if you can't carry oxygen, you can't repair your tissue. Come down here. Her lipids are better. They still got some work to do. Over here, they're looking pretty good. These were the September numbers, all right? C-reactive protein, that's an inflammatory marker, so you know you've got some inflammation going on. But let's look at her thyroid panel. Now, in both of these labs, her TSH was actually fine. But we knew that her thyroid was a problem. So when we ran this lab, look what we found. T3 uptake, she's not using the T3, okay? That's low. Her free thyroxine, that's another form of thyroid hormone, that's low. Her total T3 and her free T3, those are low. Her reverse T3 was actually fine, and her free T4 is fine. she was taking thyroid hormone and it wasn't making a difference. When we went in and fixed her liver and her gut, her numbers got better. But we'll come back to that in just a second. She has thyroid peroxidase antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies, which means she has Hashimoto's disease. Okay? 3.5 months later, her thyroid is fixed and her autoimmune disease is calmed down. She also had low vitamin D, and her red blood cells were up and her hemoglobin was down, so that confirms the iron part of the anemia. Let's hear what Cheryl has to say.
Cheryl, if you want to first start by telling us what brought you into our office.
Well, there were many things that brought me in. I did not feel well, and by not feeling well, I mean I had lost my love of life completely. I didn't know what I was doing every day. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus. I had no stamina. I would leave a store and I would walk around the parking lot crying because I could not find my car, and I was pretty sure I had Alzheimer's, and I was scared. I was very scared because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I could not keep my emotions in check. I was crying all of the time and I didn't know what to do.
What did you try prior to coming in?
Prior to coming in, I had based all of my issues on weight, and I just figured I was overweight, so all right, I was having issues, and I did all the usual LA weight loss and Weight Watchers, and nothing ever helped, and it didn't help the weight loss, and it didn't help any of my other symptoms. I had watched a video online where you were interviewing someone who the name escapes me right now, but you were talking about functional medicine, and a bell went off in my head, and I thought, there's my answer. There it is right there.
Awesome. So what did you find different about this approach compared to some of the other things you tried?
Absolutely everything. There was understanding, and instead of just, hey, go do this, it was, we'd like you to try this because these are your issues. Like all the testing and everything that it showed, things that I had no idea about. Finding out about Hashimoto's was absolutely huge to me, and it just, the understanding that you have and your ability to explain things on very clear levels, it made so much difference to me, because I left here after every appointment going, I understand and I know what to do now. I know what I have to focus on.
Awesome. Can you share some of your results?
I can leave a store now and not think about where my car is, which might not sound like much to some people, but it's huge to me. I have a love for life that I can't remember the last time I had. I want to be outdoors. I love nature. I want to exercise. I want to be mobile. I want to move. A byproduct of all of this has been a better relationship with my husband. We're both just more understanding about everything, and a huge part of it is I have lost 105 pounds since I started here last July, and I know that it's not all about the weight because so much of it is up here, but the program as a whole has just given me back life that I didn't think I would ever have again.
What would you say to somebody who's kind of sitting on the fence, maybe on the other side of the computer screen watching this and unsure about taking that next step?
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate, because the results that you will have will blow your mind.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. All right, so let's talk functional lab testing again. We talked about this a little bit before, but these tests reveal what conventional testing does not reveal. You have to run the right test. You know what they say? There's the old saying that if you don't know where you want to go, any road will do. Well, if you don't have the right information, it doesn't matter what road you're on, you're not going to get to where you want to go. Functional lab tests, they explain why things are happening and not just what's happening. The why things are like, is your liver converting? Is your gut doing what it's supposed to? Are your adrenal glands getting in the way? That tells us why you have the problem. And when we know the why, then we know what to fix. With the correct testing, you can pinpoint exactly what needs to be corrected and measure the success of the treatment. So I'm going to ask you a question now, and just yes or I get it. Just type it in there if you want to. Do you see how the right testing can get you the right answers? Do you see how the right practitioner can make all the difference? It's very unusual for people to bring in the right labs to me. And usually it's because whoever their managing doctor is, they don't know what to do with the labs anyway. There are no drugs at all that will make your liver convert T4 into T3. If you're not converting T4 to T3, there are no drugs to fix that. And if your main tool is a prescription pad, then you don't have a tool to fix that problem with. Or if you have a leaky gut, there are no drugs that fix leaky gut. So nowadays, information, there's so much information on the internet. Information doesn't even have any value anymore. It's because you can find out anything you want just at the click of your mouse or your button on your keyboard. What has value now are people who know how to do something with the information that's out there and available. And that's what we do in our office, is we help to mentor our patients through the process of fixing these things. And also, it takes the right partnership. And if you get the right practitioner matched up to the right patient, then these things can change your life. I want to do a quick little review, and I'm going to ask you this question. Which 3 systems are critical to thyroid function? Take just a minute, and if you've got a piece of paper or something, write them down and see what write them in the chat box. That's great. I appreciate that. Just what 3 systems do you have to fix in order to fix the thyroid? And we're going to do them in the order that we went through them. All right. So the first one is, of course, your liver. Your liver has to function properly. If it functions properly and it does its job, then you're going to get the majority of your T4 converted into T3. The next thing that has to work properly is your gut. Your gut not only converts another 20% of your T4 into T3, but it also makes some of those cofactors that the liver has to have. Remember that. And also, what was the third system that has to be fixed in order to fix the thyroid? And it is the adrenal glands. Now, that may be kind of hard to know where, but these little guys are your adrenal glands, and they're supposed to be sitting on top of your kidneys. And if you've got long-term adrenal fatigue and lots of things like that going on, then that's been over there shutting off your thyroid system for years. So you've got to fix these 3 systems. And if you get these 3 systems fixed, it is almost a guarantee that your thyroid system is going to work just fine. So to repair the thyroid and the Hashimoto's, here's what you have to do. You detoxify the liver first, and that means both phase 1 and phase 2. And a liver detox is not some 3 or 4 day thing that you do by drinking lemon juice or something like that. When we detox the liver properly, it takes about 6 weeks, and you need to do it very, very gently so that it's not terribly unpleasant for the patient. The next thing that you have to do is you have to heal and repair the gut. And that includes what's called the microbiome. And a lot of you, who's heard of the microbiome? If you have, just type, I have, Rich. Yes, yep, thanks. Okay. The microbiome is the technical word, the official word for all the bacteria that live in your gut. And we now know that there actually is something called postbiotics. I know you got prebiotics, probiotics. Now you got something called postbiotics. Well, postbiotics are not the bacteria. Postbiotics are all the things that the bacteria is supposed to make in your gut, like the cofactors, like the neurotransmitters. You have to heal and repair the adrenal system so that it stops fighting against the thyroid. And then you have to find and fix anything else that's broken, like in the labs that we showed you, the person was anemic, so that had to be repaired as well. So I'm going to ask you a question. Has this webinar been insightful for you so far? Now, you've heard that you've got to fix the liver, the gut, and the adrenal glands. And if you do that, you can, so just type it in the box for me, and just give me a little feedback here. Otherwise I'm just kind of looking at my screen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. thyroid problems can be repaired. Hashimoto's can be reversed if you know how to do it and you know what order you have to fix things in. So what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to ask you a question now. Are you still committed? I asked you this question back in the beginning. Are you still committed to fixing your thyroid? Are you willing to do what it takes to do? If I could lay out a program for you and show you what you needed to do, are you willing to do that? You're the only person that can answer that question. So type it in. You're still willing. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, you're at the fork in the road. We talked about this before. In one direction is what we are now calling 20th century medicine. 20th century medicine is based on an idea that you treat symptoms with drugs. But I'm going to tell you something. You cannot drug yourself back to health. It does not work. The majority of sickness and illness in North America and in most of the West nowadays, but especially in the United States, are what we're calling lifestyle chronic diseases. And lifestyle chronic diseases have to be fixed by changing the root causes that are causing those diseases. And you can't do that with drugs. You have to find and fix the root cause. So would you like to see, anybody like to see how we apply these principles in our practice? All right. Thank you. All right. A number of you are saying, yes, I want to see it. Of course I want to see it. Okay, thanks. All right, so let me show you what we do. We have something called, we have something called the Thyroid Essentials Program, and it is an extremely comprehensive lifestyle and functional medicine program, and it works like this. We start off with something called an initial consultation. Here, I've got a little circle to put around it. We start off with an initial consultation where we sit down for about an hour and we go through your history, what you've done, what you've tried, what's worked, what hadn't worked, what labs have you done, things like that. And then what we do is we do a lifestyle and nutritional consultation with our certified holistic nutritionist. And we order some labs back there in that initial consultation. And when your labs come in, we do a lab review and we go over what's going on. And then that kind of maps out the rest of the program. And these things normally take about 6 to 8 months. Shay Sloan, the one she said in 6 months she was able to accomplish what she hadn't been able to do in years. So what's included in an initial consult? Now, we can also do these over the phone or FaceTime. I like to do them in person, but we don't have to. So if you don't live in the Northern Virginia area, that's fine. But in the initial consult, we do about a 60-minute deep dive discovery session. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that the first thing we do is we review our 26-page intake form. And that sounds like somebody just went, whoa. Yeah. Excuse me. I might have a drink of water there. All right. Well, it used to be 43 pages, and I edited it a couple of months ago because I thought it was just too long. But, if we're going to figure out what's going on with you in your health sphere, we've really got to have a lot of information. So we need to get to know you pretty well, and that's why we've got a nice, thorough health questionnaire that we use, our intake form. We get in there and we start looking to find your root cause, and that is the main goal of the discovery session, is finding that root cause and seeing if we can't start to nail down what's actually causing you to have your problem. This is where we want to figure out what is your why. We go over your lab work, any lab work that you've had done. We go over it and look and see, if there are any clues in there that will help us. And you're going to feel heard for maybe the first time ever. Unfortunately, most doctors spend most of your visit telling you what you need to do instead of listening to you tell them what's going on and then them trying to help you figure it out. Most doctors will walk in, they've looked at your labs, they change your prescription, they say, I'll see you again in 6 months or however long it is, and it's bye, see you later. And you don't really get to talk. As a matter of fact, some doctors nowadays, they won't even let you talk about more than one problem at a time. If you want to talk about 2 things, you have to schedule another appointment. That's just ridiculous. We're going to do a careful evaluation of your blind spots. No matter how much you read and how hard you try, it's still very easy to have simple things that you're just not seeing. We call those blind spots. And I had somebody in my office today. She didn't realize where she was eating so many carbohydrates because she thought that what she was eating was healthy for her, because we've been told our whole lives that grains and fruits are healthy for us. And then we will give you recommendations for what you should do next, what we call the right action steps to do. And that might be run some more labs. It might be get on a certain kind of diet. It might be do a combination of diet with supplementation or whatever it has to be. We lay out what you need to do. So let me ask you a question. How many of you would like to get a good comprehensive thyroid panel run with all those markers on it? All right, so here's what I have for you today. Normally you can remember back on the graphic that we split this up over several visits. But what I'm offering for you today for staying with me to the end is an opportunity to get that entire blood panel run along with a clinical consultation. Now, the clinical consultation, that's the 60-minute consultation that we just talked about, and the comprehensive blood panel, including all those thyroid markers. We'll get all of that done. And so you're going to get the comprehensive blood panel at my cost. I'm in a co-op of other doctors, and we can actually get that blood panel run for $210, and the consultation. And what you're going to get is you're going to get the initial consultation and a lab report along with it. And this will help you to see what's actually going on. And then with that information, what you'll be able to do is know what you need to do to actually fix the problem. Now, if you put both of these things together, you get both an initial consultation and the comprehensive blood panel for just $4.99. And what I want to tell you, the blood panel that we run, we've had a few people try to submit it on insurance, and when it's billed to an insurance company, it is a $2,600 lab, and you can get that lab run for just $210. All right, I've got a couple of bonuses for you. This is a bonus for the first 10 people that sign up. I will actually, when your labs come in, before you come in for your visit, I will make you a personalized video lab report where I will put the labs up on the screen. I will go through your labs for you line by line by line. I'll explain exactly what is going on so that when you come in, you already have an idea of what is happening, and you'll have questions to ask, and we can end up getting done in one visit what normally takes several weeks to do. And I have another bonus for you as well, and this is for the first 25 people that take advantage of this. I'll give you an additional $25 off, and that will be applied at checkout. The coupon code is 25 off, but it's automatically applied to the first 20 people that take advantage of the offer here. So I want you to imagine for just a moment. Imagine that 2 weeks from today, and how fast that can go by, and imagine that in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, you find out exactly why you have thyroid disease, and you find out how to reverse it. You can do that in just 2 weeks. You can find out exactly what is going on, and you can know exactly what you have to do to fix it. Because I know that almost all of you have been told you're going to have to live with this forever. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have to take thyroid replacement hormones, Synthroid, something like that the rest of your life. Those things are not true. That goes back to a 1950s thinking that should have stayed in the 1950s, and yet that's the way doctors are trained. And so what they're doing is they're still telling you the old stuff from years and years ago. These things can be fixed if you just know what to do. So here's what you can do. What do you do next? Well, right here, I know it's kind of long. Look over on the side. Sometimes the link will show up properly, and sometimes it doesn't. If the link is there, you can just click the link, and it will take you to a page where you can enter your details. And what we'll do is you can enter your details, and you can sign up to take advantage of this. And what will happen is, over the next 24 to 48 hours, one of our team will send you your requisition. They will send you the location of the Quest lab closest to you. Now, we use Quest for a reason, and that is because they will download your lab results straight into my software, which helps to analyze every single one of those numbers and put it in the proper relationship relative to thyroid problems. It's especially designed to do exactly that. So you'll get your requisition that will be emailed to you. Your directions on where the closest lab is will also be sent to you. You'll be sent your intake form with some directions on how to fill that out. Now, I need that intake form back within about 24 to 48 hours, and the longer you give me with it, the better job I can do going through it. But I need that a day or two before you come in for your visit. So the thing to do is just get the labs done as quick as you can, get the intake form done as quick as you can, just send that right off to me. I'll have already gone through it long before you get in. If you sign up quick enough to get the first bonus of the video lab report, then I'm going to send that to you just as soon as I get your labs. And it takes about 5 to 7 days from the day you do the draw for your labs to come back to me. All right. And I will look at those. I will make your video. I'll send that out to you and send you your report. Then you come in, we sit down, we go over everything that's going on there, and based on what your labs say and what your history and all of the other things tell us, then we know exactly what things need to be fixed, and sometimes even more importantly, we will know exactly what order that these things need to be fixed in, because some of you've tried a lot of these things before. You've tried certain diets, you've tried certain supplements, maybe you've tried some liver detox. But the problem is you have to get these things in the right order. If you don't, it's like if you wreck your car and you try to paint the car before you do the body work to the car, you're going to be very, very disappointed in the results. So I'm going to just leave that up there for a few minutes. You can write that down if the button over to the side is not coming up. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If it comes up, just click the button and it'll take you right to the page where you enter your details, and you can go ahead and get all that stuff going. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. I asked you in the beginning if you're willing to do what it takes to fix this problem. And even if you don't do anything else, running a complete lab and getting a thorough report on what the lab has to say is just worth its weight in gold. It really is. And this is also good for people. My wife and I, we run a thorough lab on ourselves once a year, because you always want to make sure you're catching something before it would tend to go the wrong way. It's like doing the routine maintenance on your car. I will bet that most of you have never even had the opportunity to have this thorough a lab run. Take this opportunity and get this lab run, because this will give you every single number that you need in order to actually pinpoint where your root cause is. And once you know where the root cause is, then you know what has to be fixed. And once you know where the root cause is, you know the order that you have to do things in. And when you get things done in the right order, you can go from having thyroid problems to being thyroid problems being a thing in your past in as little as 3 to 4 months. These things will change real quick if you get the right things going in the right order. You know, remember what Shay said back in the beginning. I read you her little testimonial. In just 6 months, we did what she hadn't been able to do in years. And mine, you saw my labs. My leaky gut was fixed in 3 months, and you saw Nima's labs. You saw where it showed that all of her thyroid numbers normalized in 3.5 months. So if you know what to do and you run the right labs, then fixing this stuff, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is possible. And we see it all the time. I'd have to say, virtually every patient that comes to see us that does what we tell them to, and we lay it out for them, every person that comes to see us, if they follow the right procedure, they end up with these things being something that was in the past. You don't have to live with this stuff the rest of your life. So I ask you again, just back to the little kid climbing the wall. You got that obstacle in front of you, but you can get over that wall. So imagine this. Imagine that in 2 weeks, imagine that in 2 weeks, you know what's going on and you know what you have to do to fix it. And then you have a plan for fixing it. All right, I'm Dr. Glenn. Thank you so much for being here. I've also included our phone number there and the email where you can reach a member of the team. If you'd like to ask some more questions, if you'd like to find out more about what we do, the bigger picture of the program. Now, doesn't mean you're signing up for a program. It just means you're going to get a consult and some labs and get some answers. Then if having us help you with a program is something you want to do, great. We'll talk about that then. But you're not going to get any pressure from us. This is all just about getting a good quality consult where you can talk to somebody and getting the right labs run so that you can pinpoint your root cause. If you want to talk to somebody in our team, you can call that phone number right there, or you can write to the email support@drgarlandglenn.com. But if you want to take advantage of the offer, you need to go to that to the link right there, or click the button over to the side, and that will take you to the page, and you take advantage of that. And you'll get your requisition, and all of the instructions on what you should do next will be to you in the next 24 to 48 hours. Our team gets right on top of these things and takes care of them right away. So I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will hopefully see you real soon in the office, and we'll get to the bottom of your root cause and get you on your health journey. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.